Hello? Great. So I hope you can hear me now, and welcome everyone. It's really good to see a full library once again. I forgot the jingle. It's all about the sound. Let me see. Oh, okay. Well, today we're going to have yet another lunch talk from the Center for Absolute Sustainability. And the program looks like this, like it's always doing. So first I'll just present the program and what's going to happen today. And then we'll have some center news from Michael Hauschild. And then you will have the talk that I guess you all came here to listen into. And we will also have time for a Q&A where Michael and Mia will go on stage together. So please note down all your questions as we go along. And then take some time maybe to reflect together with those that came here today. And welcome to all of you, and also welcome to everyone at home. We have a lot of participants for this seminar, so I'm just very thankful for all of you who came today to make this community thrive. It's something that we really care about, because with no community, we have no way to disseminate or discuss or get the knowledge out there. So thank you for that. So if there's someone that hasn't heard about the center before, we do research in absolute sustainability, and we do that in 3 different pillars. I guess some of you are saying it in your head now because you've heard it so many times. But we're doing systemic modeling, so that's where we should go, what are the aims for our development, and how should we get there? That's the systematic engineering. And then all about the strategic implementation. What should we do to get there? There's no one size fits all here. And you're all here to meet Mia Heide. That's a dear friend of the center. I've looked so much forward to hear her talk today on the well-being economy. So, but just before we dive into that, I would like to invite Michael Hauschild to the stage just to present a few of the news we've had since the last time we met. So please give Michael a hand and warm up the stage.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's not so long ago, the last seminar, so of course there are not that many news since the last time, but there's a very important one that you also heard about last time, which is our upcoming conference. From less bad to good enough, the first international conference on absolute sustainability that we organize in the center together with the Reboundless project. It is in the autumn, 30 September to 2nd October. And I would say that what's really unique about this conference is not just a scientific conference. There's a strong, and we have now a lot of abstracts have come in, there's a lot of scientific content, but there's also a lot of company participation, applications, and I think this is really the ambition with the center, to have both the scientific track and the application track and have them interact. So we will have a curated industry track on absolute sustainability running through the whole conference as well. This is, of course, very important for those of you from the academic world who think the application and creating not just scientific impact and citations, but also creating societal impact is important. I think that's a great opportunity. And of course, for our industry friends, many of you are attending this online. This is also an important message, that's really a strong focus here on expanding the science, exchanging on the science, but also getting the implementation that Christine mentioned as the center's 3rd pillar to get that up and running. And why join? Well, we have 7 world-class keynotes, very diverse topics. I encourage you to go and check out the homepage. There's information about it there. We have probably closer to 100 platform presentations and a great number of posters as well that have been submitted as proposals to the conference. We have hands-on workshops, interactive sessions, and a lot of networking. We are in a very nice location in Conventum, on the north coast of Zealand. It's not an easy place to just come and go from. So once you're there, the intention is you stay there for the whole duration of the conference. So this is going to be a strong focus on the networking. Early bird tickets is until 1st of June. So if you're considering to go, it's a good idea to register now. As I said, it's also on this a bit remote Conventum, and there's a limited number of hotel rooms as well. So if you're considering to go, it's a good idea to register now. And the information is on the homepage of the center. And then, in addition to that, we have organized the day before a masterclass in absolute sustainability. So if you're coming anyway, why not come one day before and then have some of the leading people introduce a new guideline that we have drafted together with the European Commission on absolute environmental sustainability assessment, AESA. So how do you do it on practical cases? So we'll be working with really step-by-step, hands-on introduction to a guideline. How do you do an absolute environmental sustainability assessment on your own case or on cases that we prepare in advance? It's the whole day on the 29th of September, so just the day before the conference starts. And as I said, early bird is until the 1st of June. So hope to see many of you.
Thank you so much. Okay, and before our next speaker on stage, I would just like to show you a little video and just make some awareness of this alliance, so with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. So Vela and Mia is also part of that alliance. But they have created a quite interesting video explaining the wellbeing economy. And so it's like for an economy in service of life and not the other way around. So just take a few minutes and warm up the stage here, watching the video together with us. Let's see if it's working.
The world are shifting towards a well-being economy. Economies touch every aspect of our lives. Whenever we create and exchange, when we care for or teach one another, when we rest, give, or receive, economies are present. But what is an economy really for? Is it serving us, or are we serving it?
I think an economy should serve the mothers, the children, the teachers, the doctors, of all the people that live in it.
It's thriving. It's meeting the needs of all people within the means of the living planet.
To be good stewards of the planet, to be good stewards for one another. That's what an economy should be.
What we're being asked to do essentially is to put aside our assumptions about how the world worked in the past.
So I think the economy needs to shift toward promoting flourishing of life in all its forms, rather than just promoting a system of monetary exchange.
It's about looking after our planet, our home, and how we manage as a global tribe.
Can't just have one set of people kind of imposing those needs on the rest of society. So you have to include everybody in that dialogue about what kind of economy we want.
In order for people to be truly liberated, for people to be truly free, they must have control of their economic futures. This is 1,000 hands, 1,000 seeds blooming.
We held a national conversation with the citizens of Wales, and we posed the question, what's the Wales you want to leave behind to your children and your grandchildren and future generations to come?
We began with Amsterdam, and other cities and towns and nations and islands started picking up these concepts too, from Barbados to Barcelona, from Copenhagen to Cali, Colombia.
We're working with a community in Pomona, California to help co-create a vision for well-being and then move from that vision toward a strategy.
If you ever think that you're too small to make a difference, okay, Wales is a tiny nation of just over 3 million people. And yet we have this world-leading legislation.
Just basically, how do you work with your neighbor? How do you work with your friend, your enemies? How do you relate with them in a way that their life, the way they live their day-to-day life is thriving?
this. So this is possible. It is happening now. And we need all of us to come together as a one voice to demand for change.
That's what the next 5 years are about, and not giving up hope, not giving up the fight, not stopping that action that will eventually lead to a better world.
It's happening. Thousands of people and organizations around the world are working towards a well-being economy. Join us.
Great. So you can see that there's a lot of different organizations working with the well-being economy. But for now, we would like to welcome one of those on stage, Vela. So Mia Heide, please come to the stage and please give her a big hand.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also a bit nervous, not because I'm doing a presentation. I think I've done hundreds of presentations, but this is my very first presentation on well-being economy. So please bear with me. Keep your questions for the end. I hope we can have an exciting dialogue. So today I'm going to tell you about well-being economy and absolute sustainability. And my name is Mia. And why am I the one to tell you about well-being economy? As I just said, it's my very first presentation about well-being economy. Well, I'm actually an engineer from here. I did my bachelor and master's at DTU in architectural engineering. When I finished my master's, I went into consulting in NIRS, where we applied for some money to get an industrial PhD, which I eventually ended up doing with Michael as my main supervisor. And the PhD was about operationalization of Sustainable Development Goals and combining them with absolute sustainability. And then we developed some frameworks for the Danish building sector. But the whole point was about this merge of the social part of sustainability visualized by the Sustainable Development Goals and then having the absolute sustainability with the planetary boundaries. Then, very recently, this year, actually, I started in Vela this February. And Vela is short for Wellbeing Economy Lab. We are the first think tank dedicated 100% to implementing a well-being economy. And that in itself is quite cool. We have 1 year anniversary this February, so we are also a very new organization. And I'm there as a senior analyst. And so far, it's been amazing. And I learned crazy many things that I would try to tell you guys today. Besides that, in my industrial PhD, we did a podcast called The Green Sofa, where Michael, among many others, cool guests, visited. So if you haven't heard it already, and if you understand Danish, then you can listen to the podcast. It's free, available online, and there are so many interesting topics, and maybe one coming up with me as a guest about well-being economy very shortly. Okay, enough about that. That was me. Now I would like to get to know you guys a little bit better. And I'm sorry for those of you who are online. This is just for the one in the room. Please raise your hand if you agree with these questions. So, how many of you have heard of well-being economy before this session? So, like 1/4, 1/3? Okay. How many of you think that climate and environment are the most important parts of sustainability? Okay, there's a few. Okay. This is like almost half. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay, last off, maybe the most difficult. So how many of you would say about yourself that you understand the economic system of today? Not just understand it, but understand it well enough to describe it to everyone else in the room. How many would dare raise a hand? Okay, maybe I biased it a bit. Okay, we got one. Cool. If you asked me 4 months ago, I wouldn't have raised my hand. If you ask me today, I'm not even sure I would raise my hand. But I still take the challenge of trying to talk a little bit about it today anyway. Okay, thank you so much. So the next 30 minutes, I'm gonna build my presentation a bit around my journey. So I went from engineering with focus on sustainable design towards systemic transformation of the economy. And why did I do that? I guess most of you here are engineers, yeah, like me. So why would I work with the economy? Well, I am very passionate about sustainability. I'm very passionate about making the world a better place. And I have worked in many projects, including my own PhD, having the impression that no matter what we did, at some point we wouldn't succeed with doing something sustainable or within sustainable because someone had to earn money. At some point, someone had to earn money, or we couldn't succeed because we are doing a sustainability project within a system that are not sustainable. And I really had that feeling all the time. And then I realized maybe we need to transform the entire society in order to succeed with our sustainability projects. Okay, in Vela we did a survey where we asked the Danish society, where we asked the Danes if they think that society should be governed to achieve the highest possible well-being for the population. And I know right now you think, isn't that a no-brainer? Of course, it's about well-being of people. But actually, this is not how our society is governed today. So it's quite a present question to ask. And as you can see, around 11-12% say that they don't agree, and around 75% say that they strongly agree or they agree. So the purpose of our society, or how we govern it, is the well-being of people. Okay? And I don't think you will disagree with me, but please raise your hand if you disagree. But it's about well-being of people. But how do we then define well-being? Yeah, we saw a video that Christine showed us, and I think there was many ideas about what well-being could be. It was very emotional, right? But maybe we can define well-being a bit more so engineers understand it. And this is my engineering take of this. So we have 3 main definitions of well-being. The top one is preference. Preference is about our wants, being able to fulfill our wants and needs. So if you want a car, if you want a house, you can go buy it. Yeah, you can fulfill your preferences. In this case, more is always better. You can always want more, and I will come back to this one. Another is psychological states. So this is about how, this is about how you feel. You know this one from the happiness index. You probably have seen this questionnaire from 1 to 10. How satisfied are you in general with your life? If you look at the past 2 weeks, where 10 is amazing and 1 is really sad, right? You know this one. So it's very much about your feeling, your emotions. And the thing about this is very relative to others. So if you got a sandwich which you didn't think was really nice and you didn't like it, but your neighbor got one which he really liked, was really good, then you feel less good right now because another one got something better, right? So it's very relative. And we also tend to kind of adapt. So if I'm not that wealthy, I don't have that high expectations, and therefore I can feel okay anyway. Even though it can also be reversed, you can be very wealthy and you can feel shitty. Okay, and the last one, theory of human needs. I spend a lot of time on this in my PhD. Theory of human needs. I will deep dive a bit more shortly, but just very briefly, this is about sufficiency. This is about having enough, getting your basic need fulfilled. A very important point in this one is satiability, and that means that you can have, there's a point, it's easiest to explain it with an example. You need clean drinking water and nutrition. So at some point you got food enough and you feel well. It's quite easy to say now it's satisfied. If you get more food, you will not feel better. Actually reverse, you will feel really not good if you eat too much, right? So at some point you get enough. Whereas on the other hand, the preference, more is always better. right? So it's a huge difference here. But these are three main theories that we use in order to describe well-being, and all of them are scientifically correct. In Vela, we also asked this question. When you think of the word well-being, which of the following terms do you think best describes your understanding of the word well-being? And the funny thing here is that on the top, you can probably relate to the slide before, that you are in a positive state of mind. So this is the psychological state. That was the one in the middle from before. Most people kind of resonate well-being with this one, right? So this is the psychological state, this feeling, this is how well are we feeling. That's like 45%. Then the two in the middle are both theories. This one is the self-determination theory, and this one is capability theory. Doesn't really matter. They both fall into the category of human need theory. So this is about that you are healthy, have a stable income, you can get an education, you have political rights. This one's more about your freedom to choose. Okay, they both fall into the category of human need theory. If you add them together, it's the biggest proportion. What's the very most interesting about it is that only 10% say that preference is the one that they would resonate with well-being. That was the top one from my slide. And spoiler, today we govern our society after that one. Like almost 100%, that one. So only 10% say that this is how it should be, or how they think. And from the very first slide, we knew that 75% said that it should be well-being at focus. So there's something that's off here, right? Okay. Let me deep dive a little bit more into what is the human need theory then. They say that needs are universal, and this is very essential. So needs are the same for all people across time, across generations, across cultures, across the globe. What differs are the way that we satisfy those needs. And this is very interesting for you guys as engineers, because this is what engineers can impact. So we all need nutrition, we all need clean drinking water, but the way we provide diets, the way we have new food technologies, the way we across cultures prefer food, it can be spicy and less spicy and so on, can fulfill the same need. So we as engineers can reduce the environmental impact from the need satisfiers that we actually need to provide or fulfill the universal needs that we all have. Okay? It's very, very essential to split these in two. Then last off, needs cannot be substituted. And I know this is it's kind of a no-brainer. So if you have a need for food and you have a need for education, you cannot just have twice as much education and then you don't need food. Okay, this is what it means. And I know this is very, of course, but if you go to the preference theory, this is exactly what happens. Okay, so here we have universal set of needs, and we need them all, and we need to separate them from each other. I'll come back to the last point shortly. We also say, we also say that we need much more of this thinking from human need theory into our policies, but that's not the only one. We probably also need something from the preference theory, but we definitely need some from the psychological states. It is especially good to evaluate medicine, how well it's working. When you ask these kind of questionnaires, how well do you feel from 1 to 10 before and after the specific medicine, then it can give a pretty good answer. So I'm not saying we only need human need theory, but we need it much more into our policies. Okay, so that was the definition of well-being. And now I would turn to the economy. What is the economy and what's wrong with it? Sorry, I need to stay here. I need to stay. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, so if you go back in history, the first time economy was mentioned was by the old Greeks. And they described, or the economy actually meant management of households. Then we move a bit further up in history. After the Second World War in like the 1750s, kind of. I don't know how familiar you are with history, but after the Second World War, something with growth and economic growth kind of came into focus. And in the 1950s, that the economy was going well was mentioned for the first time. So the economy in itself became a thing. It was important that the economy in itself was going good. Yeah? And we have heard it 100 times, so maybe you don't think about it. But before that time, the economy, as in the video Christine showed us, was supposed to support people so that people could thrive. But at this point, we have a shift. So now the economy is supposed to go well for the economy's sake. So that is really a turning point. Yes, let me move on. Today, when we talk about the economy, we refer to this neoclassical economy. So there are many different theories within economy, but this is what we would refer to as the mainstream economy. This is what is taught at the economic schools all over the globe. They are mainly based on the utility theory, which is about maximizing your utility. We can split it in three main, and then I got a 4-point, but in three main points. What is the utility theory? It oversimplifies human behavior. It assumes that the people are rational. They know everything. So if you are in a supermarket and you want to buy something, there's 2 products. They provide the same need for you. Let's say it's a shampoo. So there's a shampoo, it's very expensive, and then there's a cheaper shampoo. So according to the rational human, you would choose the cheap shampoo. But it forgets to include behavior, for example, or your ideal about yourself. Let's say you think about yourself as one who cares about the environment. So maybe the expensive shampoo has an eco label, or maybe it's organic. So maybe you're willing to pay more because this is how you think of yourself. This is not included in those models. They are just 100% rational. More is always better. It ignores power and inequality. The Pareto optimality is the main issue. So because everything is rational, you have a supply and demand that's always optimal. And this means that no one can get a bit more without someone else will be less off, because the market is always in balance in the most optimal way. This is assumed in this model, okay? Thirdly, they have a short-term focus. And I know this is a bit tricky to understand, but for me it was really, it was an eye-opener. So if we go to the Ministry of Finance, there are economics who are doing the economic models. So when you get a new idea for a policy, they would calculate how does this affect the GDP. And in order to consider future generations, you have this discounting. And that means when we invest today, we are spending money. It's our payment that invests in, for example, a new bridge. And then the future generations, they will get the benefit from this bridge, okay? So therefore we had this discounting. But the thing is, today, we would probably not say that the future get the benefits. The future, they will get the issues of climate change. So maybe this discounting should be negative. Maybe we should evaluate the future generations in a completely different way. So now we are putting less value on future generation. This is done in every policy that's made today. You have to know that this is actually functioning. This is how they're calculating. So your children will just suffer in this way you calculate, and that's how it's done. For me, I was like, what the fuck? But this is how it's done. Then the last point about the utility theory, it's the most essential actually thing, is that you convert everything to monetary units. That means all the things that you cannot put monetary value on, you ask people how much are they willing to pay. For example, for clean air, for access to nature. You ask how much are people willing to pay for this. The interesting part is that if you are very wealthy, then you are willing to pay more. which is pretty crazy. So the nature in Denmark, in the north of Zealand, where people are in general more wealthy, are more worth than if you go to London Falster because people are less wealthy. And this is put into our into our policy development today, which is crazy, but that's what's happening. Okay, enough of that. So then moving on to well-being economy. What is that then? We saw this movie from the beginning. It looked really nice, but it was really like to our senses. But what is it if we have to implement it? An economic system, the well-being economy is an economic system that provides current and future generations with the opportunity to live good lives within the planetary boundaries. And now I guess like 99% of you think, oh, it sounds like the Brundtland definition of sustainable development. And yes, it does. And hooray, that would be amazing, right? If we could create an economy that could actually create sustainable development. So this is what we're trying to do. We see well-being economy as a picnic blanket. And I know this probably resonates more with the ones who already studied economics, but there are several different economics. So right now we have this neoclassical economics, which are the main, but there are many, many, many others. I already mentioned behavior economics, but there's also one specific one I would like to highlight, the feministic economics. Maybe you've heard Emma Holden, there's a lot of movement in this. And what well-being economy does is that it takes from all of them what makes sense and includes all of them. And maybe you heard about this one, the donut economics. Kate Rakeforth was also part of the video in the beginning. And maybe you think, what's the difference between well-being economy and donut economy? Well, not so much. There are some, but I think for now it's most important that you think it's kind of the same. I have a question. How many of you have seen or heard of donut economics before? Okay, so basically all. Perfect. So you know the concept. It's about fulfilling the needs of the global population within the planetary boundaries. And we want to design an economy that does that. Some would say, they're all part of what we call the post-growth movement. Some would say that we need donut economics in order to create degrowth, and well-being economy is what comes after the degrowth. Some would say. Some could disagree. Okay. So how do we then design and create a well-being economy? I would start with the why. Why do we even need to do it? And I already criticized the current economic system, but still I would have like a why is it this we have to do and not something else? Well, we need to move upstream. And in Vela we got this very simplified model, but I would like to take you through it anyway. You imagine a factory at the top. It symbolizes our economic system that is addicted to internal growth. When we have the factory running in order to produce economic growth, you will have some pollution going to the air, you have some pollution going down in the water. The polluted water will at some point reach some animals, they go sick, they die. They will at some point reach some humans, and they would also go sick, and then they go to the hospital. Typically, when we work with sustainability, we work downstream. We work in silos. So maybe we would put up a filter so we clean the water so the animals will not get sick. Maybe we would increase the hospital capacity. Maybe we would create better treatment so it can go faster to healing the people. Or maybe we would do a CO2 tax somewhere up here. But we will not change the way the factory works. So that's why we need to move upstream. We need to start all the way at the top, otherwise we're not going to succeed. Okay, I hope this one makes sense. It's like a picture, so don't take it too literal. Yes, so what is that we do in Vela? We want to create this systemic change. We want to move very upstream. So first of all, we want to implement multi-criteria analysis. Yes, Rune, I know what you're thinking. Multi-criteria analysis instead of cost-benefit analysis. So the way you evaluate policies today is through cost-benefit analysis. So you put monetary value on everything. You put it into your mathematical models, and you don't think for yourself how important nature is or how you should weight anything or what's most important for you. You just put it into the model, you close your eyes, you say this is neutral, it's not biased, it's not value-based, it's neutral, it's math. And then you come out with one number, and then you tell the politician how expensive a policy is, how much it will contribute to GDP. That's how it works today, very simplified. What we would like to do is to implement multi-criteria analysis, and that means you don't put economic value on everything. You don't have the monetary value. You can, for example, if you want to do a new policy, you have biodiversity as an indicator. You can have public health as an indicator. You can have stress, mental health for people, and so on. You can also have the cost, but then you keep all the indicators apart, and then you look at the policy. How would that affect biodiversity? How would that affect public health? How would that affect mental health? And then you provide it to the politicians, and then you ask them to put in their values. How important is biodiversity for you? If you make this project, let's say a new highway across Jutland through the one of the last forests that we got, how important is biodiversity for you compared to the other parameters? You actually have to make a decision with your eyes open and not just look at one number. So this is a huge change. Second off, we are creating a system dynamics model, which basically does this. So it's a model that model all the society, and then you put in a new policy, and the output is the impact on all the different indicators in the multi-criteria. So when we develop it, we will have this picture of how it actually affects, for example, global warming. So you can see how much a policy will impact. And eventually, they can also tell us if we will be within the planetary boundaries if we add enough policies in the right way. So that's where the absolute perspective come into perspective. Okay, lastly, we are lobbying at Christiansborg. And typically we think lobbying is a bad thing, but it's not. But we just need more people with the right agendas to do some lobbying. So we are lobbying a lot in order to make the politicians realize that well-being economy is a realistic alternative to the current economy. And then I actually have a little invitation. So right now we need some methods for bringing the absolute perspective in. As I said, we are going to develop this system dynamics model, but in order to set the boundaries and having the absolute perspective in policy development, we need some research. So if you have some students who want to do student projects, or if your projects are aligned with this agenda, please come to us, because we are really, really interested in developing this area. And I also know that there will be a lunch talk in 2 times, where there will be a panel debate, and the center is doing collaboration with Concito about this. So I'm definitely going to join. But I think that we need more in this area. So please reach out if you think this is interesting. And then I reached the end with questions. I'm going to go to the next slide so you can get my information.
Great. Thank you so much. Give me a big hand.
Okay.
Thank you. Good. So I would like to invite you both on stage now. Can you maybe bring the chair? Yeah. You want to stop? Yeah. You can stand up. That's fine. And yeah, please give them a warm hand. So we're ready for one more time. Thank you. We are ready for Q&A. Anyone who wants to start with a question here in the room, then please raise your hand. And Michael, I will give you this one. Yeah, we have one here. You'll get this mic. We're a little short on mics today. There you go.
Thank you. Hi. First of all, thank you for the talk. It was super nice. I have a question just in the beginning of one of your first slides when you did that questioning regarding how people perceive, and you had different percentages. But what was the sample? Was it people with different backgrounds? Was it just in Denmark, just in Copenhagen? Because you're far more of an expert, I would imagine. But from what I saw of the possible answers, I would imagine that it's quite dependent on your social and economical situation. Because for me, I live in Copenhagen, everything's very nice. My well-being is probably more attached to the way that I feel today. Whereas I lived in Mozambique for a couple of years. That's at the bottom of the list. Well-being is way more related to if you have money coming in at the end of the month. So have you done something like that with a broader sample, or?
Okay, really good question. It's a Danish survey. We are based in Denmark. We are trying to work more with the Nordics and also collaborating with the WeGo and the WeAll. WeGo Wellbeing Governance and Wellbeing Economy Alliance, as introduced in the beginning. So we are working internationally, but Denmark focused right now. So it was a broad sample from Denmark. Yeah, but you're right, it might change if you look across the globe. Yeah.
And we have a question down here as well.
Hi. I was wondering about the international aspects, right? You're Denmark focused, but a lot of policies have like effects that deter or promote other aspects in and out of the country. So how do you take into account sustainability without driving companies to, let's say, Germany or other places?
Yeah, insane good question. We are working with the EU as well. It's a whole movement, because you are right that it is a typical question that will be raised. I think the best I can give you as an example or as an answer is to look to Wales. They were the one that was very briefly mentioned in the video. So the WeGo, the Wellbeing Economy Governance. There are 7 countries that kind of pioneered this and tried, and Wales are the ones that really took it in. So they are developing policies according to this. So it's not just on the side; it's really embedded in everything they do, and I think it's going quite well, also for the companies. So I think it is doable, but you definitely need to include it. And I'm sorry I don't have like the right correct answer, because I think it's a valid concern. But the thing is also that we don't say that we don't need an economy. We're saying that we need an economy, but the companies need to have a purpose. They need to not just make shitty products. They need to make products that provide help for people, or actually make their lives better, and not just luxury products that only the wealthiest will benefit from. So it's a shift of mindset, but we are not saying close all companies. It's important to notice. Yeah, and I'm sorry I can't say it more precise, but it's a very fair question.
Yeah, Michael, just reflect.
Yeah, maybe if I can add in reflection here, I think this is. It's not like, okay, tomorrow the world shifts into a well-being economy. This is a gradual process where you need to work on the different elements of it. And I think this is a very important, what can you say, mindset to relate to for companies. Because, if you can change your business model so that you contribute to value creation in a well-being economy instead of just, stock exchange value, that would secure your business also into a future where well-being economy may be, more characteristic of the economy we have than the one we have today. So I think it's an important consideration for companies to look into as well.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for the talk. I have a question about the multi-criteria analysis and actually the relation with absolute sustainability. I don't know exactly which model you use for that. But some of them allow for some compensation to happen, right? You can sacrifice a bit of the environmental side or the sustainability if you have good enough gains on the economic side. And I think Michael always says that you can't negotiate with sustainability in absolute terms. How do you include that in your multi-criteria models?
Yeah. Okay. So this is, as Michael also just said, this is a transition. So this is an ongoing process. So in the beginning, we need to have these ideas. So we have the first politics. So of course, we will not have one policy. And then we have a well-being economy. There will be many steps along the way. So I think in the beginning, we have to accept that this is one step, but we also talk a lot about what we cannot accept. So maybe something seems as a step in the right direction, but if it's if you cannot see it in the long way that this is the way it should be, then we are out. So we are very much aligned with the absolute mindset that we need to have something that is sufficient or good enough. So there should not be these trade-offs, but the model can kind of, the idea is you put in one policy and then you see how it affects. You can say, oh, this is better. Then you add another one. And then in the end, you should have maybe 100 policies and then you are there. Yeah.
I completely agree. And if I may add something, that our focus, as you rightly say, in the Center for Absolute Sustainability and in the Absolute Sustainability concept is on the environmental sustainability, is kind of setting the guardrails, the limits that we need to operate inside. But of course, how we operate inside, I think is not something we address a lot in our research here. And that's exactly also what the well-being economy is about. So how is a good economy, I mean, how is a good life? What is it we want to use this operating space for? So you can say our focus in the research in the Center for Absolute Sustainability is more about what are the limits, where are they? And then of course engineering solutions, but the choices we want to make, you know, how we want to shape future society, I think that's where the Center will collaborate with organizations like WELA on that.
If I may just add, it's important that WELA is not the one to decide which are the indicators, which are the one that's important. The principles in human need theory is that it's collaborative. It's about boosting democracy. So it's about having your voice heard. So it's not just the elite, the one who understand economics, that are the ones to decide where we're going with our society. So it's really about collaboration to come to that point. How do we then operate? What is the good life? So your voice are included. So that's a very important shift as well. So you will have more saying in this.
Yep. Thank you so much for this really nice presentation. And this is maybe a question for both of you. How ready do you find the system or the politicians to be to make this change? And what do they need to actually change in the way they organize?
Ooh, very good question. So I can say that we already talk with politicians. We are not party orientated, so we are not on the left or the right, but we have talked with many politicians across the spectrum, and there are several who are actually very interested in this. One of the next things that we're going to do is what we call polling. So you ask people, and it's quite interesting now. I said that there's just one valuta, right? There's monetary, but actually our politicians have one valuta, and that's voters. Okay, so we need to understand that the politicians, they are afraid to do something because then their party will lose voters. So if we can prove that there's actually voters in these agendas, then the politicians are very willing to do something about it. So there are several politicians we already talked to, and we are also trying just a little bit. We have a little local election, kommunalvalg in the autumn. So we are trying already there to see. There are some of the municipalities who are also very interested. Actually, they're more interested than Christiansborg, but they're also at Christiansborg. So there is some momentum, but of course we're not really there to just hit hard. But I think that we will see it in the coming elections. That's at least our plan. And we already talked with some, and there are some interest, for sure.
I think maybe a bit of historical look back to 2019 when we had the climate election, the national elections in Denmark, which led to a climate law, which was far more ambitious than what anybody had prior to the election said that they believed was possible, simply because there was a very, very strong popular vote in this direction. And I think this is an example of, from an absolute perspective, of actually absolute requirements on the climate area. So I think this is very clearly the case that voters speak. So it's super important to mobilize like that. And I maybe add to what you said. We have in 2 weeks, not the next, but the second next lunch seminar will be with a presentation from Concito that have a very interesting project called From Planetary Boundaries to Planetary Politics, which is exactly about not so much about well-being economy, but about how can we make the political system take these agendas in. And I think we have an example in the climate field in the Danish setting that it has actually influenced, and we take it serious. We're following up on it continuously. But this is exactly about this. How can we take something as complex as these biophysical limits and have it made into politics. So I can encourage you to come there. It'll be really cool.
I can also just it's a practical example. So we are collaborating with someone called Common Agenda. This is a communication bureau, and they are experts in creating narratives. So getting the voters to be interested in a certain topic, and we have with the Trepart, and people were, a bit about the oceans and so on. There was some interest, but then we talked about our drinking water, and then people were interested because our clean drinking water. We need clean drinking water. So it was about finding the narrative. What's the history we need to tell people in order to create the interest? So there's something about which it wasn't a lie. It was true, but it's around finding that story where the voters, the people will actually find interest, and then it can affect the politics. So that's also a way. That's some of the tools that we kind of have in the toolbox to create this transition. Yeah.
Great. We have a question from the back here. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. So I was a bit concerned about the international part. Like from the beginning, I saw some images from I don't know, it's Asia or Africa. What direct work are you doing at that position or in those places to see that maybe the rich and the poor have maybe the same quality of drinking water and maybe the same services? Because in those areas, those who have money, they live the good life, they drink good water, go to the best places and enjoy the good stuff. Why those who can't afford maybe those things maybe have to run into illnesses and stuff because they just can't afford. But what direct work can you do maybe with the governments or the big companies so they could have clean drinking water and sustainable things to bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. So we work in several areas, and one of my former focus point, especially during my PhD, was the supply chain of materials. So where are we sourcing our materials? How is the working environment? So when we have copper, it comes from Zambia, and how's the mining? So how is our direct impact or indirect impact on other nations? So of course this is a focus. But I think that we need to create a global well-being economy. And I think that right now we have a discussion, what is the role of Denmark? Because we are a quite small country. And we hope that by impacting the rest of the Nordics, including Europe abroad, we can be the one that sets an example. So others will look to us and create the same things around the world. So hopefully that will impact in the end, but directly we can't really do much right now. We are still quite small and building up, but the issues that you are highlighting should be targeted or improved if a well-being economy was implemented. And I think the Well-being Economy Alliance, for example, is a good example where many nations are already on board. The WeGo, the Well-being Economic Governance, there were 7 countries, and they're across the globe. So it is part to come on board, but I know it's even more tricky for those nations that you mentioned. So I'm sorry I can't say much good in this sense, but the thing is that we need to develop this for all countries.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's the last question we'll actually have time for. But thank you very much. And please, again, give Michael and Mia a big hand. Thank you very much. And then I will just use 1 minute to show you some of the lunch seminars that have been referred to a few times, so you know what's going to happen. Just keep an eye out for the next lunch seminars here. We have 5 different seminars lined up with a lot of different speakers, and these are the dates, and it's all on our website. And then just highlighting the next one that is on 24th of June. and it's on perspectives on a sustainable company with one of the PhDs from the center, and Michael as well. And then we have the one with policy here. So it's a quite packed seminar. So policy making in absolute terms. How can research best support planetary policies? So just a little advert for the next. So thank you very much, everyone. And yes, I hope you'll have a good day and hope to see you soon again. Thank you.